An audience member left a comment on one of my videos. They said, I know you're trying to make a valid point on what you think consists of detailed explanation on what PC offers in technological advancements and development. But a console enthusiast doesn't care about that. I know. What they actually hear is you talking down to them like you, yourself, the PC gamer, are far superior to the console player, and all you will be is ignored and disregarded. Don't be like, oh no, it's Alex. Be more open and thoughtful. You will be listened to. Love your show 313. They put a timestamp. Now, I wanted to talk about this because there's a side of this that can sound true without context. And I went back and listened to the 313 timestamp on that video so I could see if I'm actually missing anything. And so, what we'll do is, I want everybody else to listen to it so that you guys can see if I've actually lost my freaking mind. Oh, sorry, Gotham Knights footage sound. That's what played there. Sorry. To see if I've actually lost my mind or if you can sense what I'm sensing in this conversation. So let's play that. You're not the first to buy a freaking console that got a freaking upgrade in a GPU. Like, relax. Like, yo, if you really do think that people are so impressed about this particular console of yours, then man, you must be under a rock. Stop it. Like, it's so aggravating to see some of my PlayStation fellow fans behave like this and say some crazy stuff. Don't do it. Like, think about how far back in the hardware generation the PlayStation 5 new PlayStation 5 Pro. Look how far back in the AMD generation it is. So basically, this is in response to a comment that said, why are PC people so obsessed with the PS5 Pro? And many of you know I've been dealing with these questions forever. And most of them are quite pedantic in the way they actually come about. They are, in my opinion, finding ways to maybe personally attack the person posing the argument rather than actually focusing on the argument itself. So I made that statement about calming down to these hyper PlayStation fanboys about their hardware being this new thing that is so novel that instead of letting the conversation be fostered, they are much more concerned about basically having somebody validate their purchase more than anything else. This is not every PlayStation fan, and I think this is where, we have to kind of point this out. In fact, I've also kind of coined the term hyper fans, which are those who are just blindly in the fandom without paying attention. And I think even the comment from the audience member that actually posed it showed something very important. When you said what they do, all the explanation and all that, but a console enthusiast doesn't care about that. I think you saying that I'm trying to make a valid point and saying that the console enthusiast doesn't care is exactly the problem that we're seeing, because for the most part, if the response is they don't care and they don't answer or respond or consider from a logical framework, then I would say the argument's already valid. That's pretty much it. Now, when we're having these conversations also, I think we also need to go ahead and realize that we're grown out here. We don't have to sit here and pander to our feelings in a conversation that is way more scientific than anything else. How somebody feels doesn't change whether the sky is blue or gray. This is where I think, for the most part, when we're having conversations, and this spans across not just in video games and this PC and console thing, this spans across culture, across traditions, across all layers and all manners of conversation. And I think we've lost the art of being able to argue tactfully about scenarios and situations without engaging in ad hominems, without engaging in gaslighting, red herrings, and all kinds of ways. And so when you heard me, so this audience member of mine, actually pose that statement in that form, it was from a place of frustration, a frustration that I think maybe I've been feeling for the last few weeks or months talking about this. And what's crazy is I actually play on PlayStation. You wouldn't even believe it. The way I probably sounded there, you would probably never believe that I've spent way more of all my console time in my entire life on the PlayStation. Isn't that crazy? Let me show you another example. Before the PS5 Pro came out, we were talking about the hardware. We're talking about some of the possibilities and the limitations. In that conversation, I was on Twitter talking about a few things, and somebody here on Twitter responded to a comment. This was weird. This was a very long thread. What was going on? Warrior64 posted about the Rogue Ally 2 terabyte model. That was it. $8.99. This person comes in and says, "Oh, PC/Xbox fanboy thinking, Rogue Ally memory card plus memory card $1,000, which is great. PS5 Pro $699, which is bad." And I said, well, when you see Rogue on a product, you can price it almost the same as a collector's edition. It's an enthusiast device, like the ROG phone, the RTX 3090, 4090, and laptops. I said, try Steam Deck for comparison. And then they said the PS5 Pro is an enthusiast device as well. The argument, and I said, the argument against the PS5 Pro so far has been how cost doesn't justify its performance. The ROG Ally X will be snubbed by most savvy gamers, money savvy gamers, just like the PS5 Pro is being snubbed. They both do not provide a significant enough improvements to justify their prices. This is me actually talking about how even a PC SKU handheld is not worth the price point, right? And saying that you can even compare it to the PS5 Pro, giving you an improvement that's not also worth the price point. I'm not talking down at anybody. I'm actually posing the price to performance ratio as a question. You would not believe that throughout this conversation, it was berating, it was insults, it was personal attacks, being called brain dead, being called all of these things. I mean, it was just the most vitriolic of, interactions. And it's not even as bad as some that I've also had with some PlayStation fans on the internet. Now, I'm not going to lump everybody and say every PlayStation fan behaves like that. But the reality is, a lot of these people are emboldened by those that are influencers in the space. I cannot let those influencers, even without mentioning their names, to continue to lie to these audience members that are, in a sense, not knowledgeable. Because again, a console enthusiast, like you said, doesn't really care, but they don't care because they're emboldened by people who do not properly inform them. So what do? We go after the arguments of those people who inform them, and we make sure that those arguments are exposed as either lies, misinformation, or coming from a place of moronic ignorance, so that they can see clearly what the real picture is. And I don't have to call any names. When you said, "Oh no, it's Alex," I really do have a comment about that. Number one, "Oh no, it's Alex" is not a representation of every PC gamer out there. Just like I never took that PlayStation player who was on Twitter running all over the place with their mouth or keyboard as a representation of every PC player. And the person who left the comment on the original video, as much as I may be aggravated with them, believe it or not, one of the biggest games that I play, if not the biggest game that I've played, is actually Tom Clancy's The Division 2. And believe it or not, I play in a clan because Division 2 has a clan system where you can get support, you can get all of that. And believe you me, it's just going to be crazy to sound. I know, let me drop it on you. That clan's on PlayStation. How in the world am I going to be in a place where I'm going to be berating PlayStation players when I am a PlayStation player? Like I said, this is a conversation that requires nuance and context to it. And you have to actually also share the frustration if you're a console enthusiast of objective inclinations. Because being an enthusiast doesn't mean you're a blind follower. It doesn't mean that you're a blind num-num. It means that you actually are here to gain the very best that you can in terms of a technology piece. And if your money is going to be on the line spending for that technology piece, then it is essential that you are informed, very well informed, as to what's going on. But I don't think you're pointing to enthusiasts when you say that. I think what you're doing is you're pointing to hyper fans. You are probably an enthusiast in that regard. And if an enthusiast does not want to, or if a hyper fan doesn't want to hear what's going on, that's their business. There are those who keep an open mind because you told me to keep an open mind. And for the most part, what I've seen is I've not seen that open-mindedness from even most of the hyper PlayStation fanboys out there. And so, yes, I have to say what is true, not worried about how they feel. How they feel is eventually going to, pretty much change once the truth is basically, proposed enough times and it's validated to see that it is actually true. So truth at the cost of, feelings, to me, it's a worthwhile exchange. I know because the experience has been helpful for me. I'm so glad that I was told truth in my life in my young days and my feelings were not necessarily always put in front. Sure, it's nice to be considerate. I get it. But at the same time, we really have to understand that the truth is way more critical. And this is just in video games. Imagine asking somebody to temper things down in other situations that are probably much more critical, like life and death. Wow. We can't live in a world like this and make any progress. This is how humanity makes progress, by truth being constantly said and put out there. even in the face of resistance of any kind. And that's just my opinion. But again, is it really just my opinion? Or is it how humanity has progressed in the last, so many decades that we've been here in centuries? Thanks for watching. Peace out.